Welcome to The Explainer. So glad you're joining us today because we're going to do something incredibly empowering. We are completely demystifying the B1 preliminary writing paper. You know that feeling, right? Staring at a blank page, the clock is ticking, and you're just wondering what on earth the examiner actually wants to see. Well, you're in the right place. Today, we're unpacking a highly actionable, structural toolkit that's going to totally transform how you approach this test. Okay, let's dive right into this. Listen to this brilliant piece of advice from a student, Sarah Williams. She says, I always read the email twice and underline the important parts. Then I make sure my reply covers all 4 points in the notes. This helps me get better marks. This perfectly grounds us in practical, proven exam strategy. Success here, it isn't just about knowing English. It's about knowing the test inside and out. Here is our blueprint for today's explainer. Number 1, the B1 writing challenge. 2, a quick formula for emails. 3, crafting the perfect story. 4, narrative vocabulary and tenses. 5, mastering core linking words. And finally, 6, your narrative writing project. Section 1, the B1 writing challenge, understanding the stakes. Before we build a great response, we absolutely have to understand the foundation of the exam itself. What are we actually facing? 25%. The writing paper makes up a full quarter of your total B1 preliminary exam grade. That is a massive chunk. It's a high-stakes challenge. And because it carries so much weight, you need strategic time management and a rock-solid game plan. You really can't afford to just wing it here. Let's break down the actual mechanics. You've got 45 minutes for the combined reading and writing paper. Within that time crunch, you have 2 writing tasks. Part 1 is a transactional email, roughly 100 to 120 words. Part 2 gives you a choice, but we're focusing on the short story today, also around 100 to 120 words. So the crucial point is this. You must balance speed with accuracy across 2 very distinct writing styles. The ultimate goal? Clear communication, strictly relevant content, and good grammar under pressure. Section 2, quick formula for emails, the 6-step blueprint. Let's conquer part 1 first. Stop viewing that transactional email as a terrifying blank page and start seeing it as a predictable puzzle. We can actually solve it using a strict 6-step structural formula. Memorize this specific structure and it completely prevents mental blocks. Paragraph 1 is your greeting, just a simple dear name. Paragraph 2 hits your reason, the why. Think, I decided to because, or in addition. Paragraph 3 is your description. It was, it had, the most interesting thing was. Then paragraph 4 covers your reactions and feelings. When that happened, I felt. After that. Paragraph 5 is just a polite closing sentence. And finally, paragraph 6 is your sign-off, like best wishes and your name. Boom. This blueprint hits literally every requirement the examiners want. Now, pay really close attention to this surprisingly common pitfall. Never ever write from, to, or a subject line at the top of your paper. Cambridge examiners simply do not require email headers. Writing them is literally just wasting your precious 100-word limit. Save every single one of those words for the actual content where you can rack up points for vocabulary and grammar. Section 3, crafting the perfect story, the architecture of fiction. Let's move to part 2 and see how this builds when we transition to creative stories. Writing a narrative isn't just about having some wild imagination, it's about architecture. Just like a house needs a solid foundation, walls, and a roof, your B1 story needs a strict structural checklist. First, a title that actually reflects the theme. Then, your very first line must use the exact sentence provided in the prompt. Do not change a single word of it. From there, we move to the exposition to introduce the characters and setting. Then comes the climax, which is the action part or the core conflict. And finally, the resolution, where the conflict is solved naturally. If you miss one of these, your structural house might just collapse in the eyes of the grader. So before your pen even touches the paper, I want you to read that provided first sentence, take a breath, and ask yourself 4 simple what questions. Who is this about? Where are they? What is happening? And why is it happening? Taking literally just 1 minute to brainstorm ideas using these questions gives your story immediate focus and stops you from rambling. Section 4, narrative vocabulary and tenses, bringing it to life. Once you've got your architectural structure, it's time to decorate the house. We do this by using sensory vocabulary and highly accurate time expressions. The absolute secret to a great narrative is mixing your tenses. We use the past simple for the sequence of main events, the actions that actually move the plot forward. For example, she took a deep breath and stepped into the wilderness. But we use the past continuous to set the atmosphere and the scene. A chilly wind was biting her cheeks. This brilliantly illustrates how mixing the past simple and past continuous turns a flat, boring sequence into a vivid, cinematic scene. Next, we have to elevate our vocabulary, specifically around emotions and settings. Take the noun phrase sheer terror, meaning complete, absolute fear. Our example is, an eerie howl echoed, causing her to freeze in sheer terror. This is actually taken directly from an academic 148-word exemplar. Instead of just saying she was scared, which is a bit basic, writing that an eerie howl caused her to freeze in sheer terror pushes your response right up toward a B2 level score. It proves to the examiner you have range and can really paint a picture with your words. Section 5. Mastering core linking words, the grammatical cheat code. All right, we have our structure and our vocabulary. Now we arrive at what I like to call the grammatical cheat code. We need to master core linking words. These aren't just tedious grammar rules, they are your ultimate secret weapon for scoring high marks in sentence structure. Now, what's really interesting here is the strict formulaic punctuation required for these words. Take, however. It introduces a contrast. If it's sentence initial, you absolutely must follow it with a comma. Meanwhile, describes parallel background actions. If you use it to connect clauses, it needs a semicolon before it and a comma after it, and suddenly creates an abrupt, dramatic shift. Put it at the beginning of your sentence and follow it with a comma to create that dramatic pause. Let's look at a direct before and after transformation to see this cheat code in action. The first sentence is poorly punctuated. The woods were dense and creepy, meanwhile, the sky was turning violet. That right there is a comma splice, an incredibly common error. Now look at the perfectly punctuated B2 level version. The woods were incredibly dense and creepy. Meanwhile, the dark sky was slowly turning into a deep violet. See exactly how that semicolon before meanwhile and the comma after it fix a critical error? That is exactly the kind of precision that impresses the examiner. Let's isolate one more crucial linking word, although. This one trips up so many students because it's a subordinating conjunction, not a conjunctive adverb like however. It introduces a concession or an unexpected outcome. Here are the rules. Rule 1. If you use it at the start of a sentence, you must place a comma at the end of the subordinate clause, like this. Although a chilly wind was biting her cheeks, she took a deep breath. And rule 2 is absolutely vital. Do not use a semicolon with although. Just keep these distinct rules in your back pocket so you never confuse although with however or meanwhile. Section 6, your narrative writing project, the final boss battle. We've reached the climax of our explainer today. You've got the formulas, the vocabulary, the tenses, and the punctuation cheat codes. It is time for the final boss battle. Here is your challenge. Grab a pen. I want you to write a full exam-style narrative of 120 to 150 words. You must include the 3 structural pillars, an exposition, a climax, and a resolution. And to really put your new skills to the test, you must successfully incorporate and perfectly punctuate all 4 of our core linking words: however, suddenly, meanwhile, and although. Use the checklists. Dig into the sensory vocabulary we discussed. Mix those past tenses. The blank page is no longer something to fear. It's literally just a space waiting for your architecture. So as you sit down to write, I'll leave you with this. Will your story echo with an eerie howl of sheer terror, or will it end with a wave of pure relief? The choice is entirely yours. Apply these cheat codes, watch your B1 writing completely transform, and I'll see you in the next explainer.